In the year 2006, Superman returned in a bizarre sequel to a movie series that had been dormant for nearly 2 decades. It was a film chock full of recasts, melodrama, love triangles, and Kevin Spacey. But of course, as was the sacred, unbreakable tradition of the mid-2000s, a big blockbuster movie needed a big blockbuster movie video game. And a few months after Superman returned, we were blessed, or perhaps cursed, with Superman Returns, the video game, for the Xbox, Xbox 360, and PS2. But what the developers at EA probably didn't know when they were working on this thing is that the product they were making would be the very last video game the Man of Steel would lead for nearly 20 years and counting. So while this was Superman's big return, little did we know that in the world of gaming, he would be going away for a very, very long time. Hello everybody, I'm B4 Brandos, and welcome to the, I promise you, final part of the Superman vs. video game series. I don't think I could handle another one of these games. So far, we have embarked on a journey through digital purgatory. We have looked at some of Superman's most prominent and painful outings. We began our journey in the late 90s with the infamous Superman 64, a game so broken that its bad reputation still lives on nearly 30 years later. It was a 0 out of 10 travesty, just an absolute fuck up. What else can I say? We then moved on to cover Superman Man of Steel, a game so outstandingly mediocre and mind-numbingly boring that just complaining about it felt like a chore. It sucked. That's all I've got to say. And so far, what we've seen is that it's not easy to make a Superman game. There's a whole laundry list of elements you need to nail in order to actually pull it off. You need to utilize your characters. You need to utilize Metropolis. You need damn good music. It's just that Superman is such a unique fictional character in how his world works, and making the perfect Superman game pretty much means inventing several new gameplay mechanics and making them impeccable. But that's just the nature of superhero video games. One of the reasons the Arkham games are so popular is that Rocksteady showed everyone that you could do these things. They made a revolutionary brawling system, several world traversal options which made you feel like Batman, and they also had a pretty damn good story every game. Rocksteady knew who Batman was, they knew his world, and they combined that understanding with their ability to make awesome gameplay.
Don't make me hurt you.
I'll tell you what I know.
Thank you.
Superman has never gotten this treatment. He's never gotten the honor of having a dev that actually understands him. However, I think today, the game we're dealing with is probably the one that gets closest. So the game starts with a tutorial. Metropolis has become a target for a meteor shower, and there's only one man for the job. Now, I will skip this bit because I'm not ready to talk about gameplay, but I'll say this sequence is awesome. If there ever was a game intro that gave me faith that I was about to experience peak, this is the one. I mean, stopping a meteor shower for the tutorial, if that's the scale we're sitting at for beginners, this shit's gonna be crazy, right? But after we delay Armageddon, we get a cutscene that takes place 5 years later, where we find that Superman has completely abandoned Earth in search of Krypton. And we learn that Clark has been duped by the biggest villain of them all. Misinformation!
I believed reports that my homeworld Krypton still existed, and I traveled half a universe only to discover I was wrong.
As Clark's ship returns to Earth, though, it's intercepted by Mongol, who forces Superman to fight in his War World arena. And this bit is also a tutorial, just like a combat one. However, we do learn something really cool about the game here. Superman doesn't have a health bar. In this situation, your failure or victory is dependent on how much the crowd likes you. So if you're getting your ass beat, the enemy gets close to winning, but if you're doing the beating, it slowly starts to swing towards you. Another cool detail here is that if you're winning, the crowd starts chanting your name. It's awesome. By the end of the level, Mongol himself enters the arena to fight us, and this dude is really fucking easy. Like, name a bigger jobber than Mongol in Superman video games. After cementing his clout on Warworld, though, Supes travels back to Earth, and we cut to the Fortress of Solitude, where Kevin Spacey has broken in to touch some crystals. And after feeling them up, we cut back to Clark, who starts making this game's story a little bit confusing.
But even if Lois's article is right, and the world doesn't need Superman anymore, at least there's still a place for Clark Kent at the Daily Planet.
We then jump into gameplay as Superman. I'm not complaining, but wasn't Clark just going on about how Superman might not be needed anymore? Yeah, who cares? It doesn't matter because we are Superman. From this point onward, the game lets go of your hand and says, be Superman, and it feels great. First up, the flying feels incredible. Superman is smooth as butter. Wherever you want to go, he goes there. It's easy to control, and yes, the left stick controls backwards, forwards, left and right, and the right stick controls rotation as well as up and down. We have done it. But that's not even the best part of flying. The best part is the super speed, because you know what? I've just got to show you. Yeah, this is what I've been waiting for. Superman game that makes me feel like Superman and feel cool while doing it, man. This is what I've been waiting for. Superman soaring through the skies of Metropolis, looking good, looking fast. The first time you fly around in this game is breathtaking. I mean, how did they get this on the Xbox 360? Metropolis is literally 80 square miles of skyscrapers. It's really impressive to look at. But with a mission popping up, we go to take a look and find that Metallo has returned as well and is terrorizing the streets with his robot army. And this is also where we get our first taste of the general gameplay loop here, because when I say that the robots are terrorizing the streets, they literally are. All these NPCs run around trying to hurt civilians and damage buildings, and it's our job to stop them. On the actual combat side though, I will say that when you're on the ground, it's just kind of okay, because this is one of those brawlers that has a whole menu of combo moves you can execute. Unfortunately, I will say that the game is quite laggy, so the combos are hard to pull off since you don't even know if you're actually getting the timings right. On the other hand, enemies can be beaten by using our powers as well, which are made up of Super Breath, Freeze Breath, and Heat Vision, which are done really well too. Heat Vision is it's whatever. Freeze Breath is cool. Super Breath, on the other hand, is hilarious. Like, you can really blow enemies away. Another thing I love about the powers is how you need to be careful with them because of how your health bar works. Since unlike the Warworld arena, you're not fighting for fans here, you're fighting for Metropolis, and every single NPC or building or car that gets damaged takes away from your overall health pool. So in this game, Superman is invincible. He can't die, but Metropolis can. It's pretty clever since it makes you think like Superman. You stop playing defensively for yourself and start doing it for civilians. You pick targets based on what's going to hurt more people. And when people do get hurt, you can even take them to an ambulance to get your health back. The thing is though, Supes is powerful, and if you use the power wrong, you can end up hurting innocents. It's what makes the fights great. It makes you think like Superman, constantly analyzing a situation to see how you can put an end to it. It's awesome, it's genius, it's a little undercooked, but we'll get back to that later. After the big fight though, Metallo escapes and we're thrust into the general gameplay loop, which is pretty much you fly around and you wait for a new crisis to pop up in the city, which for this chapter at least, I fuck with big time. Just going around as Supes, helping people, keeping Metropolis safe, it's a dream come true. I think one of the moments that really stuck with me from my first play session was when I learned how to use the burst powers, which are like mega versions of your heat and various breaths. But I was called to a mission that was nothing fancy, a building was on fire, and I decided to use my burst freeze breath to put it out.
That's what I'm talking about!
I can confidently say this is the best playable Superman in all of gaming. It just ticks so many boxes for me. He's strong, he's fast, he's powerful, and the game isn't scared of giving the player full control over that power. Like, I tried it out. You could do anything with Superman's powers between missions, including murdering everybody on this bridge. But anyways, enough yapping about the gameplay. Let's talk about the story, or more prominently, the lack of one. Now, to explain this to you, I will have to say there is such thing as too much of a good thing. The devs nailed Superman's gameplay, but they clearly had no idea what to do in the story department, because that gameplay loop I was talking about never ends. Since after an hour of flying around doing random missions, we get this question mark icon from the Daily Planet. And you might be thinking, oh yeah, Superman's got a day job. This is probably how we're gonna move the story forwards, right? As Clark Kent. Well, no, because flying to the planet, we get a completely unrelated cutscene of Lex Luthor being pissed off that Superman's back, and finishing that up, yeah, it's right back into the gameplay. That was That was weird. But continuing onwards, we do all that stuff we were doing before, beating up robots, putting out fires, saving people, yada, 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 yada. And after long enough, we are called back to the Daily Planet for another cutscene that does not involve Superman or Clark Kent.
To think one could create a new world with such a simple little object.
By the way, if you haven't seen Superman Returns, this is all probably very confusing for you, so I will do my best to quickly explain what's going on. Superman Returns is a sequel to the original Superman films, and in that movie series, Lex Luthor is strangely portrayed as a guy who simply wants to be the best criminal ever, but his whole thing in this universe is real estate. Almost every evil plot he hatches in these movies is about real estate or land or some other bullshit.
Land. Real estate.
Land.
They will always need land. How to make the land more valuable? Beachfront property.
Beachfront property.
Worthless desert land.
Land.
Anyways, Krypton in this universe used crystals to grow their cities and tech and all that. So Lex tries to exploit that to create real estate that he can sell. I'm not joking. That's the plot of Superman Returns, and I'm only telling you all this because the game doesn't give a shit about any of that. In between the world's most repetitive gameplay loop, we get these cutscenes which are completely unrelated to what's actually happening in the game. But being thrust out into the open world again, you're probably wondering, gee, Brandos, we spent a lot of time in this world. Is there anything else we can do here? And the answer is kind of. In the open world, there are essentially 3 things you can do. 1, you can mess around with your powers and destroy stuff. 2, you can find stray cats all over the city. Or 3, you can do the Mr. Mixius Pitalik, or you could do Mr. Mixius Pitalik missions. Is that how I say that? Which we gain access to when we run into the guy. And in this cutscene, Mixie says he's stolen some stuff from the Fortress of Solitude, and if we want it back, we need to play his games. Which in this case, we have 2 different types. The racing minigame, which I don't really vibe with. It's probably got something to do with the fact that you're flying and you've got a time limit. It just reminds me of something. I can't tell what though. The other one though is playing as Bizarro. And racing against the time limit, we need to destroy as much stuff as possible. And although this is fun, it's kind of hard since Bizarro has the opposite of Superman's powers. Instead of super breath, he sucks items towards you. Instead of heat vision, he's got freeze vision. And instead of freeze breath, he's got heat breath. But the thing is that all of these powers are drastically less destructive than Superman's set. So while I like the idea of this minigame, it feels weird because they let you off the hook only to not let you off the hook. Which is strange because if they were worried about Superman causing all this damage, it doesn't really matter because Mr. Mixius Pitalik literally transforms us into Bizarro. So it's implied that all of this damage really happened and Superman just willingly allowed it. Why not just make it so Superman is the playable character and then Mixie resets all the damage at the end? At least there probably should have been an option if you wanted to play between Bizarro or Superman. But yeah, those are all the things we have to do outside the main mission. And what you're probably realizing right now is just how bare bones this game is. It's very nice to look at, very nice to play, but it feels like a tech demo. Like a large amount of content is genuinely missing here. Like I'm all for Supes flying around Metropolis, fighting bad guys, but this is lazy. You continuously get put in the same situations over and over again, fighting the same enemies, putting out fires. There's times when it feels like you're playing Superman Man of Steel. This game is kind of something that you should be booting up for 30 minutes to get the Superman experience from, and then you shut it down, nothing else. Because any longer, and you'll start to see the cracks in the mirage. For instance, how little Superman talks, how few notable characters are in the game, how empty the world actually is. I mean, Metropolis is a place that's been mapped out in the comics over decades, and yet I can barely pick out any important landmarks. Love it or hate it, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League actually built Metropolis with all its history included. While the closer you look here, the more you find that it's just a massive generic city with the Daily Planet in it. It kind of feels like Rage. This is really random, I know, but I've been playing the game lately, and in that game, there is so much detail in the world and its models, but as soon as you get close to anything, it looks like shit. It's all so blurry and undetailed. It's like everything was meant to be looked at and taken in, but not analyzed at all. That's how this game feels. It's the perfect Superman game till you look just a tiny bit closer. Anyways, that's enough complaining for now because I've run out of things to say. So moving onwards, we fight robots till we come face to face with Metallo again, except this time he transforms into a giant robot, which is like, hell fucking yeah. Therapy for Man of Steel, right? I get to fight a giant robot this time. During this fight, Metallo walks around smashing buildings and we have to fight his little drones, throw them at him, and then do that until he's defeated. It's pretty lame if I'm being honest. The only time Metallo even acknowledges your existence in the fight is when you throw a drone at him, which in response to, he'll fire a laser at you and then go back to smashing buildings. It's like, are we fighting here or what? But beating Metallo, our reward comes in the form of a cutscene where Lois is trying to find out what caused the blackout that Lex created. And I think that this is the best representation of how much the game doesn't care about Superman Returns' story. Because Lois is talking to a guy on the phone who tells her where she needs to go to track the blackout, and then he randomly starts yapping about Bizarro escaping containment.
I don't know if you heard, Miss Lee, but Bizarro and some of the other clone experiments ended up escaping during the power outage. Anyway, just thought you should know.
It's obvious which one of these plots is actually going to be relevant to me, the player. But as the dude said, our new big bad is Bizarro, strangely just like Man of Steel. And for the next few levels, we do battle with a bunch of Cadmus clones all over the city. I don't really have a ton to say about this section, except I really like fighting the dragons. It is so satisfying to fight them since you just need to lock onto them, fire your freeze breath, and then when you supersonic charge into them, boom, they're down. One shot, it feels great. The ground force mutants aren't as fun on the other hand though, since this is where we learn Superman has quite the problem with being stunned. Like being invincible, you do need a way to stop the player from totally tanking everything, but the further we get into this game, the more we run up against enemies who will just make Superman fall over for a few seconds. And it gets really annoying because you usually can't dodge or block in time because of the lag. But yeah, apart from that, this section is a lot of filler. And when we come up against Bizarro, the fight is really just a lot of move spamming, and bringing him down, we're rewarded with another awesome cutscene. In it, Lois continues her investigation into the blackout and sneaks aboard Lex's yacht. She's then caught by Lex, who was just waiting behind this door, I guess. And holy shit, man, watching this game's cutscenes is painful. For lack of a better word, they're cringe. I can't explain this feeling. They just make me feel uncomfortable.
Millions of people will die.
Billions! Once again, the press underestimates me. Come on, say it.
Luther, you're insane.
No, not that. Superman will never let— Wrong!
But Lex reveals his awesome plan for using Kryptonian crystals to make marketable land and kidnapping Lois. Superman does fuck all because another prison break thingy has happened and Brainiac's minions have gotten free. And after this, we do the whole mission formula thing again for an hour, beat them, and then we get another cutscene showing that Mongol has arrived on Earth to take his revenge against Superman. And when I say Mongol, I actually mean Overcast, who was the guy we fought in the tutorial, because this motherfucker is pretty much in every single mission of this section. He shows up at the start, then again halfway through, then again at the end. Like, guys, this was a tutorial enemy. I beat him in the tutorial. He's not threatening. But eventually we catch up to Mongol and show him the door, which earns us the pleasure of yet another cutscene, where we find that Clark actually does have a day job. Yeah, despite what this game would have you believe, he's actually not Superman all the time. Clark receives a fax from Lois asking for help, and he flies out to her coordinates. Unfortunately, he's too late to stop Lex Luthor's big plan, and Lex shoots off his kryptonite crystal thingy, which creates a big tornado. And thus, the final boss fight begins. I'm not joking. The final fight of this game is a big tornado. Like, I gotta say, in this game, we faced some real crappy boss fights, but this one takes the cake. Like, you gotta fight these tornadoes, then save a bunch of people, then finally you have to go head to head with a mega tornado. And you need to use your heat vision and freeze breath to counteract the tornado's temperature. In the end, we beat the tornado and are given one last cutscene. The funny thing is that while this game has completely ignored the movie plot in these last few minutes, the final cutscene is pretty much a one-for-one animation of the movie. So Superman flies off to Lex's Kryptonite Island, and the two have this back and forth.
Kryptonite!
kryptonite.
Lex beats the snot-ass Superman, kicking him into the ocean, but luckily Lois rescues him and Superman lifts the kryptonite island off Earth, saving everyone. Lois then writes an article saying Superman's the bomb, and yeah, that's the campaign. Now, with this being an open world game, there's actually quite a lot of post-game content. Like, I'm talking nearly 2.5 hours here. Although I don't really know if I should be surprised considering how low effort the rest of the game is. Like, it really must have just been a copy and paste job for most of these encounters. Really, there's not a lot of new content here. It's just a lot of previous fights again, and you better believe our boy Overcast shows up at least 2 times. We also unlock Superman's Golden Age suit here, which is one of the 3 available suits in the game. I didn't talk about it when we unlocked his spacesuit, well, because I don't like it. But yeah, we mop up the rest of the in-game encounters, and on the last mission, you'd kind of expect that you'd get something for doing all this post-game extras. Well, maybe a little box saying, congratulations, you did it. Once you complete your last mission, your save file will now say 100% and you're done. Which feels a little bit confusing considering 2 things. 1, you don't need to complete the Mixius Mr. Mixius pick. Number 1, you don't have to complete this motherfucker's missions to get 100%. And 2, the random missions that we've been doing,
Citizens are in danger, Superman.
don't stop. It's crazy. This game is so incapable of switching things up. This game is about 8 hours long if you're grinding the story missions. And in those 8 hours, you are doing the same couple of objectives dozens of times. Put out a fire, beat up these ground enemies, beat up these air enemies. That's pretty much the long and short of all the objectives in this game. Going back to my Rage comparison, the easiest way I can sum up this game is to say it feels fake. On the surface, it looks like a Superman game, it feels like a Superman game, but then you go just below the surface and you look for things that make up Superman, but they're not there. Superman as a character is not a consideration in this game. There's barely a thing he does because he decides to do it. The supporting cast are barely there too. Lois doesn't see Superman till the final cutscene. Lex doesn't speak to him till the final cutscene. Superman doesn't even do any daily planet work until the second last cutscene. What I'm trying to get at is that this is a Superman game in raw presentation only. This is a game where you play as Superman, but you're not playing as the character of Superman. So without a worthwhile story or any depth behind the gameplay past responding to a few objectives, Superman Returns really comes across as more of a simulator. Because if I were to rate this based off of it being a sim, hands down, it's fantastic. Superman is really fun to play as. It's great to soar across the city. It's awesome to blow away a bunch of enemies or laser them into oblivion. Functionally, it's got Superman nailed. But a video game needs to be more than just a solid gameplay foundation. It needs to give a player a reason to keep going. It needs to stay interesting. There are ways to do this. You can put more depth into your gameplay and broaden the situations a player can get into, or you can make your story deeper to make the gameplay seem less important, like a lot of walking sims do. Superman Returns doesn't do any of this though. Its story is jarringly disconnected from the player's experience, and the gameplay, it's so shallow you could play this thing for 30 minutes and pretty much have seen everything. So in the end, this is a weird game because it's really good up until the moment where you go, I have to do this mission again. Just that realization that you're not actually playing a story or anything, but are instead grinding XP to continue the story, it really sucks. The game just becomes this repetitive slog. It straight up is just too much of a good thing. Like, this game has great music, right? But they play it all the time. So it becomes really annoying.
Kitten population.
That's what this whole game is like. There's just too much of one thing and too little of everything else. Too much Superman Simulator, you know? Give me more of, I don't know, Clark Kent stuff. Give me indoor missions. I don't care. Give me something else. The gameplay is great, but that's all the experience is. This game really is shallow, and that's disappointing because I really wanted to like this game. But apart from it being a good Superman simulator to play for maybe 10 minutes, there's not much else to like here, which is why I'm going to be giving it a 5 out of 10. So here we are, the end of the road. Through this series, we have looked at 3 out of dozens of Superman games. 3 of what I consider to be Superman's biggest video game milestones. His worst, his most honest attempt, and his afterthought of a movie tie-in video game. But what have we actually learned through our series? All the way back at the start of this whole thing, I stated that I wanted to find the reason for Superman's consistent failures in video games. And now that we've reached the end of our road, I think I might have found it. Developers look at Superman and see a problem. He's invincible, he's stronger than most of his enemies, he can fly, he can punch through walls. How are you meant to create obstacles that the player can't easily bypass? That's probably one of the harder things to get right. But I think what a lot of devs miss is that sometimes you can get your obstacles from the story. Superman does have limitations, but they come from his Clark Kent side. To explain it best, I'll tell you how I would make a Superman game. And pretty much, I would copy Spider-Man PS4. In that game, Spider-Man can't just be Spider-Man all the time. Bro actually has a job, but this job is tied directly into the story. So when you go into work, you complete puzzles, interact with Otto, you build character relationships, you shake up the gameplay, and you further the story. What exactly is stopping us from doing that with Superman? What I would do is I would adapt the story of the late Mr. Kent. This was a Superman the Animated Series episode where Clark is investigating the case of a man who's being put on death row. Clark wants to prove that the man is innocent, and while running against the clock, his investigation gets the attention of some shadowy people who try to assassinate him. The rest of the episode from there isn't really important, but it's just kind of that premise that I would adapt. I'd make it so that Clark is trying to clear someone's name, and his investigation gets a hit put out on him. And through the game, you would switch back and forth between Superman and Clark. Superman for the open world action parts, and Clark for the parts where he needs to gather information. As Clark, you would investigate the underbelly of Metropolis, fleshing out the city, and your investigation would lead you to big name villains for Superman to fight. But Clark Kent wouldn't like gameplay either, since there could be sequences where you need to protect your identity by escaping an area as Clark. It could be the equivalent of Batman stealth sequences, using your powers discreetly to avoid enemies. It would also be pretty funny if getting shot in these sequences damaged your clothes, and if the enemy saw too much of your costume, it would blow your cover. In the end, I would definitely have the final boss be Lex Luthor. It would turn out that he ordered the prisoner to be put on death row, and I think it would tie a good bow on everything. In the end, the game would just be a Superman game. Shove as many Superman characters in as you can, shove as many villain appearances and fights in as you can, make a Superman game. Don't hold back. Because all these games try to be a Superman game, but they never work because they're only slices of the character. And those slices are often his powers and nothing else. Superman is more than his powers. That's the point of the character. What makes him interesting is how he uses those powers, as well as when he doesn't. That's how you make a Superman game. Explore Clark Kent. Explore Superman, his methods, his life. You will find places for gameplay, puzzles, and of course, flying around, beating up robots, and putting out fires. As Superman 64 shows us, a Supes game needs WB to keep their fucking noses out of it. As Superman Man of Steel shows us, a Supes game needs to be well designed. And as Superman Returns shows us, even if a Supes game is well designed, it needs to be more than just about being Superman. Because at the end of the day, the character of Superman is about more than just being Superman. So wrapping this up, let's pose one final question. Will we ever see a good Superman game? I'll say, yeah, we totally will. Superman is still a popular character, and ever since the Arkham games and then Spider-Man PS4 came out, people have realized that you can have a quintessential superhero game. It is possible, and all that means is that there is a perfect Superman game out there that hasn't been made yet. It just needs the right dev team, and that dev team needs to watch these videos. Anyways, guys, this brings us to the end of our series on Superman versus video games. Thank you so much for watching. Tell me what you thought. Tell me how you would make your Superman video game. Also, tell me if you like the new movie. As of recording, the movie is not out just yet, but it is very close. So let me know what you thought. But yeah, I've really enjoyed putting together these videos. I've always been quite the DC fanboy, and I think it was really cool that in this series, I was able to kind of bring that passion onto the channel because, you know, at the end of the day, this channel is really a lot about the stuff that I'm passionate about. So once again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one, and don't forget to look up.